away from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Dale Richter. I'm the other co-chair of the Family Council. I know in the interest of time we have a limit on our remarks, so I'll move along as quickly as I can. Appreciate the opportunity to appear before this committee today and testify on Senate Bill 206. I would also like to thank Senator Brulte and his staff for their willingness to hear our views on this bill, because we did meet and discuss the bill several times with the senator's staff. While we do not support the use of drugs by inmates, we do feel, however, that families and visitors are unfairly being singled out as the main conduit of drugs into the prisons. We also do not believe that there's been any comprehensive effort undertaken that sufficiently establishes just how much of the drug supply quarterly packages are responsible for with respect to the overall quantity of drugs found in our prisons. Senator Romero already referenced the 1999 zero tolerance hearing, and we testified at that hearing. I'd like to point out that at that hearing, the Department of Corrections identified a number of areas as sources of known drugs, in addition to what our colleagues here have already mentioned. In addition to inmate mail, quarterly packages, etc., and contact visits, they also identified vendors and contractors, inmate work crews leaving and returning to prisons, vehicle movement in and out of prisons, and also certain staff, of which that time testimony was provided that there was a limited number of 2,000 staff under any kind of screening or random drug urinalysis and testing. It was also our understanding at that hearing that any sworn peace officers was excluded from that because of a labor management issue. CDC also alleged that when packages are found in quarterly packages, there are large quantities. Later, during questioning, the actual 3% figure that the senator referred to earlier was acknowledged by the Department of Corrections. They also further acknowledged that they didn't have the sophisticated tools and capabilities to identify and corner all the drugs that do come into the prisons through the variety of those sources already mentioned. We do feel at this stage also that the data presently is mainly anecdotal and does not sufficiently warrant making any change to the current package program. We would also suggest that if any other area of the institution were singled out, such as what has been done with quarterly packages at Pelican Bay, I think you would identify and find probably at least an equal amount of drugs or a greater amount of drugs coming in through these other areas that have already been identified. We would also like to reference the fact that the Quarterly Package Task Force, the Family Council, and CDC worked for years since the 99 hearing, and we identified a variety of measures that could be implemented to control what prevalence of drugs there is in quarterly packages. For example, inmates and families could be held accountable through means of establishing a register, for example. Only approved persons on a visitor's inmate list would be able to send that package in. The package would be sent in using an affidavit approach, an affidavit approach with sanctions and penalties. And if necessary, to help offset the department's identified cost of processing and handling of packages, an administrative fee could be assessed similar to what is already collected for the processing of restitution, fines, and orders. And to date, none of these recommendations we forwarded to the Department of Corrections has been adopted. The program is basically continued as it is. And we also feel that before any change is made to the program, there should be a thorough and comprehensive review of the problem. The results of the review should be independently verified by an outside qualified organization, such as University Research and Statistics Department, say UC Berkeley or UCLA, so forth. And we do not believe that a pilot project conducted at any one institution can make any measurable difference in determining the extent of this problem. Of the cases presented here today, I have yet to hear how many of the incidents that were investigated actually were quarterly packages. Now, quarterly packages are only authorized per quarter, obviously. I think I heard that there are other means of these, other ways these drugs are getting into prisons through regular mail. So I'm hoping we're also not going to suggest stopping regular mail, stopping contact visiting, because there may be some indiscriminate, or there may be some small amount of drugs coming in through these other methods. And finally, I would ask that I would state that we seriously question the need for this legislation at this time, and that we understand now of late that the Department of Corrections is now considering perhaps going to a vendor-based system statewide. And of course, that's of much concern to members of the Family Council, and we hope to continue our discussions with the department on that issue and hope that they do not eventually decide to take such a drastic step. That would just have devastating consequences on families. Thank you very much for allowing me to share my views today.
Okay, we have several other witnesses. I know we have at least 4 or 5 more. If you could be brief and not repetitive, be great. Go ahead.
Thank you. Chairman and committee members, I appreciate this opportunity to appear before you on the SB206. My name is Gail Patrice Brown. I also am on the Inmate Family Council that meets with CDC. I just wanted to address how this affects families financially. There's a misconception that the state provides a lot of the items that the inmates need. Most of these items are not provided by the state, that the inmates need to either purchase that out of the income that they make, or that the families will be sending in money or quarterly packages. Razors, shampoo, toothpaste, aspirin, cold medicine, eyeglasses. The misconception also is that prisoners that work jobs make a small income. Most do not make any pay whatsoever. How do inmates obtain these simple items needed? Well, one way is the families. We send the money into the inmate's trust account, or we send in items on quarterly packages. Presently, if we send in quarterly packages, we are able to go shop at somewhere such as Costco or Walmart and get something that makes sense as far as, being able to pay as little as possible for something. For around $100, I can pack this box with personally selected food, toiletry, and clothing. If you remove this ability to purchase these goods and go with an expanded canteen or vendor-provided package, I would need to send that money in to that family member that's incarcerated. So that $100 that would go in would be subject to restitution, which is shortly about to go to a whopping 55%. That $100 is now shrunk to $45. Currently, the items that are sold in inmate canteens have a reported markup of around 65%. If this is true of the vendor-provided packages, my $100 now has a buying power of about $20.
May I, given the
because
amendment I took, that's no longer correct.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of the bill is also requires them to expand the canteen during the pilot program as well. But I mean, the cost factor, he has taken an amendment to balance that, shall we say.
I would like to question about how they could expand the canteens. My family member has been at 5 different prisons and says that the canteens don't have room to add any more items at all. And unless the state thinks that they're going to expand and build a larger canteen, I think that's one of the things that this committee should question, is how they're going to expand the canteens. So I just would like to say that the cost of the families is going to go up. We're going to have to send more money in. We don't have the personal connection, but the money, I think, also goes into a trust account that I believe draws interest. I don't believe that interest goes to the inmates. I believe that interest goes to the state. I think that's something that this committee should also be asking, is the state making money off of our money? So I urge you to vote no on this bill, because I think it's an additional financial hardship to folks who can ill afford it because of all the other costs that we have with having someone that's incarcerated.
Okay.
Thank you.